Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for inviting me to speak today. My name is Charlotte and I work for the Imperial War Museum in the UK. And I'm going to be talking about a project that we had called Lives of the First World War. So this was a project that ran from 2014 to 2019. So I'm going to tell you more about that today. So a bit of introduction, first of all. So the idea of crowdsourcing and collaboration isn't something new for the museum. So the museum was set up in 1917 whilst the First World War was still going on. And we had an advert in people's ration books from the time. So on the left of the screen there, you can see the advert that says that the Imperial War Museum is asking for photographs, for sketches, poems, all kinds of objects to do with the First World War. And this is something that we continue to do right to today. So we accept physical material. If you then fast forward 100 years, we did the same thing, but digitally. So when we launched Lives of the First World War, we asked for similar things. So we asked for photographs and letters and diaries and things like that. But instead of sending them to the museum, we wanted people to put them onto our website, Lives of the First World War. So you can see that IWM has been crowdsourcing and collaborating for more than 100 years. So what I'm going to be talking about today is what the project was, how we built our audiences, and also what the legacies are of this project that finished last year. So I'd like to begin by playing a short film for you. And it lasts a couple of minutes and it tells you a bit more about the project and what we did with it. So I will just play this for you now. Just double check. Sorry, I was just checking that the sound was playing as well. So hopefully you can hear this, but also we do have the subtitles there as well. Lives of the First World War began back in 2014 and it's a centenary project running right the way through to 2019. The idea of it actually came from Imperial War Museum's own remit. So when we founded the museum back in 1917, the idea was to represent men and women from across Britain and the Commonwealth who were involved in the First World War. And that's continuing today, and what we wanted to do was bring it right up to date into the digital age and allow people to contribute to our website online.
We are commemorating everybody who participated in the war effort. Some at home, some at overseas, various parts of the world, and they should be remembered as well.
You never know what you're going to find, so it's really exciting because you don't know until you've clicked on the life story. You never know whether there's going to be all these sources that you'd have no other way of accessing.
You've got things like letters from the trenches, photos of sweethearts. The fact that it's source-based, it gives a lot of credibility and a lot of plausibility to this.
Communities allow us to see people in context. There are communities for men who suffered facial wounds or munitions workers who suffered TNT poisoning. Those are where the surprises come, and the communities can't possibly, in most cases, gather all of those people, but they give you a real sampling and you start to understand the war in a different way.
And I really think that in 50, 60 years' time, someone's doing their family history and they happen to put that name into Lives, and it turns out it's one that someone's researched without having a family connection. That would be so exciting.
Okay, so just picking up on some of the points from the film. So this was a project led by Imperial War Museums, but we didn't do it alone. So we had a partnership with Find My Past, which is a family history service. So people could go on there and look at records and find out more about people in the past. And we had a partnership with them. So they supplied lots of information to us, which we could include in the memorial. As well as that, you can see a list here of different people and organisations who we work closely with, both in the UK, but also in other countries like Australia, for example, New Zealand, Canada, because this is a project that was looking at both British stories, but also from the former Empire and Commonwealth as well. So we represent 7.7 million individuals who have a story to tell from the First World War. So that is a huge number of people. It includes men and women, as I say, from across Britain, the Empire and Commonwealth. It looks at people who served overseas, but also people on the home front. And we also include conscientious objectors, for example, so people who opposed the war. And to those stories, we have acquired 3.1 million pieces of information about them. So we began with something quite basic, just their name and what they did. And we asked members of the public to add what they could. So it could be things like photographs. It could be facts about their life. It could be stories of things that they did. And we were looking at their whole life. So not just the war itself, but what they did before that, what their family life was like, where they went to school, etc. And for those that lived through the war, we looked at what happened next as well. So it's a very rich story about all of these individuals. So when we set up this project, there were several important principles that we wanted to follow. First of all, as the film says, this project is evidence-based. So when somebody submitted some information to the website, there was a box that they had to tick to say where they got the evidence from, why they think it's a match to that person, and any further details. So it means that researchers, both now and in the future, can see what has been added, but also why, and think about the trail of evidence. So this was really important to ensure that this project is as accurate as possible. Alongside that, we made it possible for people to edit content. So if somebody put something on there and realised that it was a mistake, they could either delete it themselves or they could ask us to do that. And we also had a team of IWM staff and volunteers who were making sure that things were as accurate as possible. So we were able to remove content if it was inappropriate or if it just was incorrect. The copyright was really important to consider. So even though it was 100 years ago, you know, a lot of the things that are on there are still in copyright, or you needed to have permission from the person who owns it. And so again, when somebody added information, they had to say where it had come from, and if they needed permission to put it onto the website, that they said so. It means then that all the information that is on the website now can be reused by researchers. So we have the right to use it for non-commercial purposes. So things like research for education, for example. We also created a support forum. So this was a section of the website where if somebody needed some help, if they weren't sure about what to do, they could go on there and they could find out more, and they could ask our team for support if they needed it. And that was a very important thing to do as well. And as I mentioned, we had a team of wonderful volunteers, some of whom were in the video that I just showed you. And they were mainly in the UK, but also in different countries in Europe and indeed around the world. And they were there to help other users. So they provided extra support. They could edit some of the stories and just make sure that things were running smoothly. So I think all of these things together made sure that the project was a success. So thinking then about our audiences, so we had many thousands of people contribute to the site, and we had millions of people who viewed it. And it was very important to ensure that we reached as many different people as possible. And the ways that we did that, so first of all, through press and media. So we got in touch with national and international press to get the story out there, to ask people to go onto the website. And this was particularly important for anniversaries. So for example, the Battle of the Somme, the anniversary in 2016, and the armistice, which we marked in 2018. And as you can see on this photograph, we had some famous faces to support us as well. So this is Catherine, the Duchess of Cambridge, when she visited the museum, and myself and our volunteers told her all about the project, and she actually found one of her own relatives. So that was a very good opportunity to spread the word. We also had outreach events. So this is where we went to different places around the UK and had a stand so people could come and get information. We did talks, we did online events like this. And in total, we reached more than 15,000 people that way. So that was very important to do. And as well as that, we also built a social media following. So between Twitter and Facebook, we had more than 35,000 people follow us, again, from all over the world. And it was a nice way for people to share what they had been working on. And I think what was important about building our audiences was we consulted them from the start of the project right the way through to the end. So we wanted to make sure that what we were doing was working, that it was easy to use, and if there were any questions or ideas, then we were going to take those into account. So that was very important to do. And in doing that, it helped us to understand our audiences more. And we were able to categorize our audience into 4 groups that you can see in this pyramid. So at the bottom, you can see curious. So these are people who perhaps don't know anything about the First World War. They just want to see what it's all about. They'll have a look on the website, and hopefully that will begin their journey of discovery. So as you can see from the pyramid, that is actually the largest audience group, where those casual users who then worked their way up the pyramid and began making contributions. So next we had explorer. So this is people who perhaps have heard stories in their family about the First World War. They know a little bit of information, but they want to explore to find out more. Then next you have the seekers. So these are people that have already done some research and they're looking for extra information on the website. So they're seeking further details. And then at the top, it's the smallest group, but they made the biggest impact on the website. So the expert user. So these are people like family history experts, historians, academics, people that have done a lot of research already and have added that to our site. So these are the kinds of audiences that we worked with and we targeted throughout the life of the website. And we also did a bit of work to find out who the audiences were. So 160,000 organisations and individuals made a contribution, and most of those people were aged 45 and above. Interestingly, about half were male and half were female. And whilst most of them were based in the UK, we had many different users around the world, and particularly in those Commonwealth countries like Australia, Canada, and New Zealand. It was important as well to find out how they were getting to the website, and we found that just over half used a desktop computer rather than a mobile or tablet, but we did want to make sure that the platform was accessible across all of those devices. So the collaboration between audiences was very varied and diverse. So these are just some of the organisations that took part in the project. So we have a primary school with pupils aged 11 and under. We have a project led by a local council. We have a university there of Nottingham, and also a local history group. So these are the kinds of people who all made a contribution, and they worked together to bring these stories to life. As well as that, we worked with the schools to create a teachers hub. So this was a part of the website that teachers and schools could go on to use in their teaching. So we pulled out some of the stories. We looked at the curriculum that the schools follow. And we also worked with the Council for British Archaeology. They had their own project looking at homefront legacies and the physical remains of the First World War in Britain. And so we joined forces with them because we were looking at the people, they were looking at the places, and we brought those together to create this content for teachers. And it was wonderful to hear stories of how our project was helping people to make connections. So on the left there, you can see a medal that somebody found, and through using our website and putting out an appeal on social media, they actually traced the family of the man that this medal belonged to. And similarly, this is an article on the right in the Guardian newspaper, and it shows that somebody found a photo album, and again, they managed through Lives of the First World War to find out who it had belonged to and who the people were in the photographs. And the album was then given back to the family of the person who kept the album. So it really was an amazing experience to see that even 100 years later, new discoveries were being made. So as I mentioned, we brought the project to a close in 2019 because this was a project just for the First World War centenary, so just for those 5 years. But even though the website isn't live in the same way, the information is being preserved, and there are legacies of this project that I will just talk about now. So When we were preparing to wind down this project, we sent out a survey to the people who were using it. And as I said before, this was a very important thing to do all the way through the project. And we asked the question, what did you like most about Lives of the First World War? And these were just some of the words that people used. And there is an emphasis on information, on stories, on remembrance. And we wanted to make sure that we kept all of those things alive and kept them going in the next part of the project. So the project closed in March of 2019, and we didn't accept any more new information. But what we did was we created a permanent digital memorial on the IWM website. And that is the link there if you'd like to have a look later. And what you can do is in the search box, type in the name of a person or the name of a regiment, for example, or even just the name of a place. And you will get all the results that people had added during the centenary. And this is something that we are committed to preserving forever. So all of that wonderful information that we gathered is always going to be there for people to use and to look at. And we also created features so that researchers could make use of this information. So when you do a search, you can see the results, and we have the filters that are on the left of the screen there. So you can filter the results by place of birth, by rank, by all sorts of information. But also you can download these results for free. So you can see in the box on the right hand side, I've highlighted that you can actually do a CSV export. So that will give you a spreadsheet of all the results, and it means then that researchers can examine this. They can look at connections, they can draw conclusions from these stories. So as well as looking at them individually, they have a lot to tell us as a whole. And these are free for people to use for their own research, for their own personal use, or for educational purposes. If people wanted to use the information in a different way, for example, for publication, they would get in touch with the museum and we would follow it up accordingly. And as well as all that, we wanted to make sure that the teachers' content that I mentioned still remains available. And on the IWM website, we have learning resources, and this is part of it. And you can see there just some of the stories that are featured within that teacher's content. So just to finish, just to say another legacy of this project is the project I'm working on now. So even though the First World War centenary has ended, we are still really keen to collaborate with different people around the world. And so we set up the War and Conflict Subject Specialist Network. So this is free to join up to, and the website is just there for you, ssn.iwm.org.uk. And it's free to sign up, and you will receive e-newsletters about what different people are working on. You receive invitations to online events like this. And it's just a way for people to share information. So it's open to anybody who looks at conflict from the First World War all the way through to today, so through the Second World War and beyond. And it's a really good way for us to share our knowledge and our experiences and potentially work on activities together going forward. So please do have a look at that if that is of interest to you. So I'd like to say thank you again for inviting me to speak. I'm sorry that I'm not there in person. It would have been lovely, but of course, COVID has affected us all. But hopefully that was interesting for you. If you do have any questions, I can take them, or if you like, you can email me afterwards. So my email address is partnerships@iwm.org.uk. Thank you.
Charlotte, thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing with us your experiences of this beautiful project, which has really been an example for us. I can tell you that. I told you already, but we were very inspired by what you have done with WarLives, especially which also struck me in your presentation. What was the aim of the project? To bring it into a digital age and to make it a permanent digital memorial. I think that's, oh. Can you still hear me, Charlotte? No. I think there's something wrong with the connection. This is not... Can you hear me, Charlotte? Okay. I don't think Charlotte can hear me. I think everybody can hear me except for Charlotte. Is that correct, Tessa? Yes, I think that's correct. Well, it's a long way to London or Liverpool. Okay. Then we continue with the next part. I'm sorry for this. Lizzy.
Yeah, I'm gonna unmute myself and start a video. Okay. I hope you can see me now. Okay, so bit of a surprise for me to just barge in on this presentation of Charlotte. So I hope you can all hear and see me. I would like to start my presentation. Okay, share. Okay, one more click. Okay, I hope you can all see my presentation now. Today, I was asked by Puk and Edwin and Tessa and Anna, all my colleagues at the War Collections team, to end the day and to talk a bit to you all about WarLives, our latest project. It is a website a bit similar to Lives of the First World War that Charlotte presented a couple of minutes ago. And of course, I feel honored to end the day, but also a bit, you know, nervous because for us at the the War Resources team, Lives of the First World War has always been the big brother and the big example of an excellent website about lives of people in the and how you can reconstruct lives of people that participated or died in a war. So when we started our project on WarLives, we really took a good look at the website, and I don't want to say that we copied the website, but it truly was a huge inspiration to us. And now I see that I jumped in the middle of my presentation, so let me switch to the first slide. where am I? Okay, so this is my first slide. To start today and talk about WarLives, I do want to thank Charlotte and the people at the IWM for their project and their inspiration and the things that they do and did, because that really helped us kick off our project and get a good direction for our project. So most of you know that we started a project in 2017, I think, to gather information about people from the Netherlands and in the Netherlands that somehow got caught up in the Second World War. Over the last years, we collected approximately 60 collections from archives and museums. So it's photographs, it's archival material, it's records, card files, etc. Those collections had already been digitized in one way or the other. And we use IT to combine all these different archives and to to reconstruct the life of a person and test and see if we can find references to one person in different collections to reconstruct a life. This is still a bit abstract, but this is what the website looks like. You can search for a person like you can on the IWM website. You can search for a person and you can find a timeline and information about this person. And this is reconstructed from several resources. As you can see here, for instance, Jacob Maas is reconstructed from 11 different pieces of archival material. Well, I've talked about this before, so I won't go into it that much, but we were really excited when all of our partners felt comfortable with us publishing their data online. And last February, we launched our website, Oorlogslevens, or in English, WarLives. And of course, we launched it at the beginning of a pandemic that we didn't participate in. We didn't see coming. So it has been a bit of a chaotic period since the launch of our website. So of course it got sort of snowed, and it got a bit lost in all the other things that happened in the world. But after launch, we were able to build up a community of people interested in the Second World War and in personal lives of people in the Second World War. And we get a lot of amazing feedback. And amazing can be people complaining that we don't have enough information, but also people sending us in information. So this is just a random selection of the kinds of the things we get. So people that are related to victims or people involved in the Second World War send us photocopies of letters that they have, or scanned timelines or whatever. And the red piece of archival material at the right, this is actually an archival file from the Arelsen archives. The Arelsen archives are running a crowdsource project, and people are spying in this project for me. So they are crowdsourcing archival material for the Arelsen archives, and when they see someone from the Netherlands, they take a screenshot and send it to me to inform me that there's another person from the Netherlands found. So this is really mind-blowing, and I'm really happy with all the feedback that we get. And we also got some amazing input. So we connected all kinds of archival material. A lot of it is just not very good quality scans or black and white photographs, but over the time, we were able, or other people were able to enhance the images that we use for our website. So, for instance, this beautiful colored photograph on the right is done by the Stichting 18 September, and I applaud what they do. So they built this amazing app about stolpensteinen, struikelstenen in the Netherlands, and they also color pictures of people that are commemorated with a stolpenstein. So I love these photographs, and they really bring these people to life for me. But you can also see some other interesting input that we got. The two archival cards that you see are both from the Arelsen archives. One is from the Vught Kartotheek, and the other one is from the Joodse Raad Kartotheek. And even though they're poorly scanned, you can blow them up enough to see what is on these cards. And this really is helpful for us. And I will come back to that, because this is where crowdsourcing, or help from friends, comes in. We started doing crowdsource projects ourselves because sometimes archives or museums offer us collections that haven't been transcribed yet. So we help them digitize these collections. We also help archives to crowdsource the information from these cards. And it's really nice for the archives to have a transcription of the records that they have in their archives, but it's also very helpful for us because we can really use the data on these cards to complete timelines of the different individuals in our website. For instance, this person that was on one of the arrest cards of the City Archive of Rotterdam, we could match him with the person you can now see on your screen. So in Rotterdam, they knew he was arrested and transported in Rotterdam and sent to Westerbork on the 7th of October 1942. We can now see, for instance, from the Joodse Raad Kartotheek and from other archives, that he was sent from Westerbork to Auschwitz, I think, on October 16th. The train journey took 2 to 3 days, and he was killed in Auschwitz on October 19th, 1942. So this card is just one piece of the puzzle of Mr. van Gelderen, Moses van Gelderen's life, but it is a very important piece of the puzzle, and we use every piece to reconstruct every person's life. So we started doing crowdsourcing projects to get more archival material and connect more archival material to our website, because we didn't have a large community that can help us connect everything. We use a lot of machines and a lot of computers we use computer power to match all the different resources. But sometimes you don't know whether or not one person referenced in a piece of archive is the same as another person. So for instance, when you look at this screen, you can see 2 Johannes Landslots and 2 Jacobus Landslots, but one Jacobus is also called Johannes. Of 2 of the Landslots, we know where they were born, and of 2 we don't know. So the computer gets, or we were very strict in our tolerances, and we said, well, you need to know at least a date of birth and a place of birth to match a person. So in these cases, we couldn't match these different pieces of archival material because we had the evidence that we had was too limited to match them. But people started emailing us and sending us messages like, this person is the same one as this person, and this one is the same person as that one. Can you connect these? Because it looks weird. So suddenly we had this new crowdsource project that was, you know, not started by us, but started by the people looking at our website and sending us emails. So what you see on the right is a Google Doc form I made for a couple of people to experiment with. And we have a couple of very big and enthusiastic users of our website. And they started using this form and are now helping us connecting these loose pieces of material that we have that we don't really know to whom this reference belongs. But they also started pointing out other things to us. I don't know if you can see the red lines on your screen. I thought I made really big ones, but they're a bit difficult to read maybe. So this is, for instance, this is a card from the Joodse Raadkartotheek. And handwritten on this card, it says, bij transport ontvlucht. So she escaped from transport. And the next line says, woont thans in Israël en gehuwd met Leuwenstein. She currently lives in Israel and is married to Mr. Leuwenstein. And someone pointed this out to me and said, well, pay attention to this person. She seems to be it looks like she escaped from the train. Well, you need to do a lot more research because not everything on these Joodse Raadkartotheekkaarten is true or is right. But this reminded me of the fact that people can read these handwritten cards. The computer can't read them, but we need more tools and we need more crowdsourced tools to have people help us transcribe these cards, because again, they contain information that is really, really relevant for reconstruction of people's lives. So here's the next form that I'm currently working on to see if I can create a new form and people can help me transcribe events in people's lives so we can connect new events to timelines of people. In short, I wanted to show you today that we use computers to reconstruct lives of people. And this is it's not exactly different from what the Imperial War Museum is doing, but it is a bit different. We don't have a huge set of volunteers that help us reconstruct lives. Most of the work is done by computers, but we are looking into new ways to get the crowd, to get people involved and help us clean up after the computers, let me call it that. So to do all the things that computers can't do, for instance, because it's handwritten, or to connect pieces of information that you as a human can interpret better than a computer. And then finally, Edwin started this morning with referring to our new projects that are coming up for next year. And one of them, he calls it Tilting War Lives. So kantelen, not just looking at a person and looking at the events in a person's life, but also look at the data itself in war lives, and see what we can learn from this data. So I took this screenshot last week because I'm always a bit hesitant to do a live demonstration, but this was just a random test. I found a transport date in someone's information. A person was transported from Kamp Amersfoort to Dachau on the 24th of May, and 1944. So he was transported from Kamp Amersfoort to Kamp Dachau. And I was fascinated by the question, who else was in this train? So I ran a test and I found 202 other people with the same transportation date and the same transportation location. So this is one of the first attempts that we do and see how else we can use this data to learn more, not just about one individual, but about groups of individuals that share the same events or the same experiences. So I don't know if I have any time left because this is where my presentation ends. But I also wanted to show one last thing with you, if that's okay. No one is saying no, so I'm going to continue for one more moment because
5 minuten.
Oh, Puk tells me I have 5 minutes left. I hope I can share another screen with you because this morning Pointer was talking about, okay, I think I should use this one, share. I was talking about the Verkaufsbücher. And of course, I'm always fascinated with these stories. So actually we have the Verkaufsbücher in WarLives. You won't see much of it in our website because it's just a very limited, a very small set of data. And it doesn't contain a lot of data that we can easily use to match lives. But I do have the data set and I try to match it and see if I can find people in WarLives that also are mentioned in the Verkaufsbücher. And this was the first name I found 247 matches of people that I am very sure are the same. So I know, for instance, that this Mrs. Virginie Meijer-Hartog lived at Kwakkenbergweg 94 in Nijmegen, is not the same, but the wife of this Mr. D. Meijer, who lived at the same address. Actually, her husband is called Daniel Meijer. Unfortunately, sometimes the diacriten get mixed up in WarLives. So this is the husband, this is the owner of this house, and this person died in 1943 in a concentration camp, and his wife unfortunately died in 1942 in Auschwitz. And their house is mentioned in the Verkaufsbücher. And for some reason I was fascinated by this house. So I, of course, Googled Mr. Meijer, I Googled Mrs. Meijer. There's this excellent website in Nijmegen about War Dead in Nijmegen. This is where she's mentioned. And I also Googled their house address, and weirdly enough, it's for sale. It's on sale right now. So this was such a weird find. I think I'm gonna leave it here now. Well, thank you. Okay, let me see if I can. Do I still share my screen or is it gone?
No, you still share your screen. Can you?
Okay.
Can you,
Stop share. Yeah.
Stop sharing. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Lizzy, and thank you for your last connection you made with the Verkaufsbücher and also the strange coincidence that it's for sale now.
Yeah, it's not a story with an end, but it is something that really, you know, struck me. And this is, and some of the other people this morning also mentioned that, you know, part of your job is just Googling and searching and being curious. And well, yeah. This is a weird find.
But also what Jerry said this morning, make it relevant and make it into the now. And when you start with the house that's now for sale and you find the history back, it's amazing. All you can do with digital. Charlotte, I'm very sorry, we lost you somewhere into the channel, or I hope you didn't drown.
No.
But anyway, your internet connection was a bit difficult.
Yes, unfortunately. Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much. I think you missed what I said, that I started by saying that you are quite an example for us. And you still are in making a permanent digital memorial and to bring it into the digital age, which is also what our aim with our network, to bring the memory into a digital age. And I think both your example and the example Lizzy gives us is that it's part technique, but it always will be only possible when you need, if you need the help of the audience.
Yeah.
You can't build a digital infrastructure only by technique. You need people. And I think you gave a beautiful example of how people are involved in your project. Which brings me to the next question. It's a project, and you say you started in 1914 and you ended in of 2014 and you ended in 2019. Why did it stop? Why does this beautiful infrastructure isn't in a permanent situation?
So we applied for funding for the project, and it was just for the 5 years. So we couldn't carry on, unfortunately, and you know, it involves lots of people as well. But what we did want to do was make sure that all the information was preserved, that it wasn't lost, even though the project isn't live anymore. But yes, it's just the practical reasons, really. But I think as well, there was a lot of interest in the First World War during those 5 years, but maybe not as much now, because it's not in the news and the media as much, which is sad, but yeah, I mean, it will always be interesting, and that is why we will always have this, but yes, not in the same way.
No, I think I know what you mean. Well, perhaps tomorrow, the 11th of the 11th. Yeah, but what you also see here is that the attention for World War II with 75 years is much more than when you have 73 years, or perhaps, well, I don't think next year, because we still have to celebrate 75 years.
Yeah.
So we'll do that next year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. But also, I think it was also a different war. The impact was different. So what we discussed this morning, what Jerry said, does it still have relevance today? I think World War II, especially on the continent, has more relevance than World War I, as I may say so. Okay. Do you know if educators still use the digital memory?
Yes, so I had a look, and since we closed the project and we had the website as it is, we have had over 2 million page views. So even though that is not as high as it was during the centenary, there is still interest there, definitely, and schools in England still look at the First World War, so they will continue to look at it. So yeah, so that is very it's just very nice to see, after all that hard work, that people are still looking at it.
Yeah, that's good, because you also made a connection, which Edwin told us this morning. We are going to do also between the places and the names, so people can look if they are living in Leeds, how many people lived in Leeds, and how they ended in World War I. I think that's a very good one.
Yeah.
That's also very inspiring for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're running at the end of the session. Lizzy, I want to ask you one more question. I think you got a present this morning, didn't you?
I did get a present. I don't know if you can see it now, but our website won a Grammy Award at the Museums and the Webs Conference, which is a big conference in the US, and it won in the exhibition or collections web sites category. It won a Grammy Award. And I got this by mail this morning, all the way from the USA. So I'm so happy to share this with all of you. This is it's the smallest, but also the most rewarding award I won in my life. So I'm very happy for all of us and would love to show it to you all.
Yes, and congratulations once again. We heard the news in April, in the middle of the lockdown. So we couldn't go to Los Angeles to walk over this red carpet to collect it. You got it home, but you have it.
This is our red carpet moment here.
Okay. Tessa, I see some people asking Grammy for what? Perhaps you can give the information which is also on the website in the app. Okay. We reached the end of this Corona Network Day. Charlotte, if you don't mind, I will continue in Dutch.
Yes, of course, yeah.
Thank you, because I speak English, but not that very well. And I lost also my text, which is, oh, there. Oké, we zijn aan het einde, dames en heren, van de Netwerkdag 2020. Die had als motto, als het niet kan zoals het moet, dan moet het maar zoals het kan. En dat heb je nou eenmaal met corona. Het kan niet zoals we graag zouden willen, dus we moeten het maar doen zoals het kan. We hebben bewust gebruik gemaakt van het YouTube-kanaal, omdat dat u ook de mogelijkheid geeft om het nog eens terug te kijken en anderen ook op een later moment alle presentaties nog eens kunnen zien. Zodat we ook mensen die vandaag niet in de gelegenheid waren de mogelijkheid geven om de presentaties te kijken. We hebben af en toe wat technische problemen gehad, vooral in het begin, excuses daarvoor. Maar ja, zo werkt dat nou eenmaal. Je moet het toch weer uitproberen. En wij doen dit ook maar voor het eerst. En ik hoop ook oprecht dat we dit op deze manier voor het laatst doen. We hebben, zoals ik vanmorgen zei, het toch door laten gaan vanuit het idee van het gaat om inspireren en ontmoeten. Ik heb in de chat gezien dat u elkaar ook ontmoet heeft, elkaar gevonden heeft. Dat u letterlijk heeft gezegd tegen elkaar leuk je te ontmoeten, dat u elkaar tips heeft gegeven. Het kan dus ook. Niet zoals we graag zouden willen, maar het is wel gelukt. Het inspireren. Ik hoop dat u geïnspireerd bent door de verschillende bijdragen die vandaag zijn geleverd. We hopen dat daar voor elk wat wils heeft bijgezeten. De rode draad was, wat kun je doen met data in het kader van allerlei manieren om die herinnering verder te brengen of actueel te maken of wat dan ook. Maar het begint met een datalaag. Ik hoop dat u inspiratie heeft opgedaan en ik hoop dat er voor elk wat wils bij zat. En ik hoop ook dat de kwaliteit van de bijdrage op het niveau was waar u ook iets aan heeft. Ik wil onze sprekers voor vandaag ontzettend bedanken voor hun bijdrage. Ik hoop dat we elkaar een keer ook weer live zien. En dat zal ongetwijfeld gebeuren. Ik wil met name Anne, zoals de trouwe bezoekers van onze netwerkdagen weten, onze rots in de branding en degene verantwoordelijk ook voor de kwaliteit van het programma, ontzettend bedanken wederom. Voor het organiseren van een netwerkdag in coronatijden. En ik wil Tessa ontzettend bedanken voor de regie op de achtergrond. Geen benijdenswaardige rol, maar Tessa, well done. Verder het hele team uiteraard. Lizzy, Joost, Janneke en Edwin, dank voor jullie bijdrage. En heel veel dank aan onze sponsoren, specifiek onze hoofdsponsor, het ministerie van VWS. Uiteraard u allen dank die ons vandaag gevolgd heeft. Het zij volledig, het zij voor sommige bijdragen. Dank voor uw reacties en uw bijdrages. En ik wou afsluiten met het citeren van de Queen. Vergeet niet, hè, 15 november begint opnieuw The Crown, part 4, vergeet het niet. Maar ik wil in dit kader toch wel de Queen citeren. We'll meet again. Volgend jaar, fysiek. Ik hoop het van ganse harte, zodra het kan, doen we het. Dank u wel, dank u voor uw bijdrage en heel graag tot ziens. En mocht u vragen hebben, u kunt ons altijd bereiken via onze mail en alle andere vormen die we beschikbaar hebben. Dank u wel en ik wens u een hele fijne avond.